So after 4 months, I'm really happy to finally share my TrevoScrub-MMAF-C19-VCV version. This is a collection of data that can be loaded into the 02 Nagal module in VCV Rack, and the data can be scrubbed, that's what I call it, or looped, in various ways to create interesting audio effects, but also give you the capability to really hear the data. So I've put together a few examples, but I'll start just from scratch here. Start with a new rack, the 02 Nagal module, load that up. This will read in comma-separated data with up to 20 data columns. In this case, I've created some data sets organized by areas in the US, over 3,000 of them, and our global data. It's scaled in various ways. The simplest way is just to take, in this case, the confirmed cases of COVID-19 cumulative, scale that information from 0 to 10 volts, and load it into a very simple rack. I think the easiest way to hear the data is to modulate a filter. So that's why the name of this project was originally called the MMAF, or multimode auto filter C19. And I'll step through the data just by clocking it. Now I have data for 121 days, and I want to listen to it fairly quickly, so my clock needs to be pretty fast. I just hit start on the 02 Nagal module, get it clocked, play some notes, and then we can hear the data. So there you go, that's San Diego, January 22nd until today. If we put a scope on there, we can see what's going on. We need to reduce the time scale down to see what's happening. And there we go. It's not a flattened curve. It's really still growing. So we'll see how all of this pans out. That's basically how it works. I've taken the data from Johns Hopkins and I've parsed it out in such a way that it can be loaded into this specific module, which is, by the way, just totally amazing that this works. I've also collected up what I call joined data. That's where I take data from 20 or up to 20 specific locations, put it together into one comma-separated file so that we can easily have access to 20 data sets all at the same time. So this is confirmed cases for some cities that I picked out: New York, San Diego, Miami, these sorts of places. So I have an example rack that I put together that's basically this, except I'm now using two low-pass filter modules, and I'm going to compare two locations. You need to load the data the first time you run this patch because, well, your hard drive is named different than my hard drive and it doesn't know where the data is. So you load the data. In this case, we're loading my file called join3 output.csv, and I have it patched to compare New York, and then down at the bottom left of the 02 Nagal module, Los Angeles. New York is panned left, Los Angeles is panned to the right, and you can hear how New York comes in first and then slopes off and levels out. Los Angeles comes in later, doesn't really slope off, but just starts later. You can tweak the cutoff frequency and the scaling to make interesting sounds. So I have a total of 5 examples. The second one is more interesting. It uses some more sophisticated filters, the same data set, join3 output.csv, which again is my interesting cities of confirmed cases beginning January 22nd. I unmute the 4 mix, I hit on my triggers module, and I start the clock. This patch has an added feature of a sample and hold. So rather than just taking the raw data, I'm doing a sample and hold clocked based on clock 2 on the clock module. And I get a staggered effect. I find that when you clock things this way and you grab sample points, you can hear the data in more interesting ways. I've added 2 offset modules, one for, in this case, New York, and the other for San Diego. And that allows me to rescale the data if I want to do that. Click stop in the triggers module to halt the scrubbing of the data. And then we go on to number 3. In my example 3, instead of using filters, I'm using instruments. In this case, some simple FM instruments. And I'm using the data to trigger notes, also using that sample and hold technique. I'm going to use that same join3 interesting cities confirmed cases data set. Unmute the 4 mix. I've added a little reverb to make it sweet. Hit go on the triggers, hit run on the clock. So my data is being scaled and then run through a quantizer to a specific notes of a scale. And that's driving my FM instrument. Again, New York on the left, San Diego on the right. I can change the scale and the quantum modules, speed up or slow down the tempo of the notes. And now we're actually creating something that's fairly musical. And we can hear the data. My 4th example, we build on top of that, do something a little bit more sophisticated. In this case, I've added a couple of filters, but we're also going to take a look at a different data set. Instead of using just confirmed cases, let's look at the new cases. So my data set that's called join4 output.csv is the new cases for that city. And join3 is the same one we've used before, which is confirmed cases. I'm going to look at New York and San Diego again. I have 2 instruments and 2 low-pass filters. I have a delay and a reverb to make it sound nice. To start, I'm going to go ahead and disable the filters by moving the cutoff all the way up and disabling the modulation. So we're just going to listen to the notes with our delay and reverb to start out. I hit go on my triggers, run on my clock. So we're hearing New York and San Diego. These are new cases, where the amount of new cases each day is converted to a pitch. To make it sound more musical, I've added in a sequencer that changes every 4 measures. And the sequencer just transposes the left side up or down and the right side up or down. As with the previous example, my clock 2 changes the note tempo. And now let's look at the filters. I'll bring those cutoff frequencies down, change our modulation amount up. So we're adding in a filter sweep where the total number of cases is bringing the tone up. It's bringing the cutoff frequency up. Because my clock doesn't necessarily match up with my loop length, we get some really interesting compositional effects. And in the last example, we'll look at countries. We have about 300 something countries loaded in here, and you can load those individually into individual modules, or you can use my join sets. I have two examples. Join 5 is my new cases for countries. Join 1 is my confirmed cases, cumulative for countries. And I thought I would compare Germany and Mexico. They're really interesting. Time-wise, Mexico didn't see any infections until much, much later than Germany. Germany ramped up pretty quickly, but then flattened their curve pretty quickly. So we should hear some interesting effects. The pink is Germany in the scope, and the blue is Mexico. You'll see the new cases in Germany first went up very quickly, and then each day there were less cases, versus Mexico, which continues to grow and grows exponentially. So there you go, the TrevoScrub-MMAF-C19-VCV version. I have over 14,000 files that are parsed out from the Johns Hopkins data, and this is shared on my website and on patch storage now. You can grab the data, load up your city, your country, you can compare cities to countries, you can compare cities to cities. Eventually I'll share the Perl scripts that I use to parse out all this data. They're not quite ready for prime time, but they will be soon. So let's see what happens. Let's make some nice music with COVID-19 data. Maybe some good will come out of this.